Welcome in to Says Who Sports right now, a couple of longtime musical brothers. One named Billy Bob Thornton, won an Oscar for Sling Blade, a multi-time Golden Globe winner, but before any of that, was playing in bands and touring with the best in the business from the time he was a teenager. And J.D. Andrew, Grammy-winning recording engineer, guitarist. They joined forces as the Boxmasters in 2006 and have been bringing it strong in the studio and on the road ever since. Billy and JD, great to have you here at Says Who Sports. Thanks for making the time.
Absolutely. Good to see you, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here.
Likewise,
Let's talk sports.
Guys. Right on. Yeah, oh yeah, we'll get to that and plenty more, if you will. Billy, you've said all you ever wanted to do was be in a band and make music and take it on the road. You've done it at a high level for decades. New album coming out. You're about to head out on the road again. Describe what it feels like, Billy, when you're sharing that energy, that buzz with the crowd at your shows. When you're pouring out energy from the stage, they're feeling it, sending it back to you. What is that energy transfer like for you on stage?
Well, you kind of rely on the audience for your own energy, in a lot of ways. If the lights go down and you can hear a pin drop, you know it's going to be a rough night and we're going to have to work very hard. Fortunately, that doesn't happen very often, but it does occasionally. But we play the same show for however many people are there. I mean, if we play for the 12 people that are there or the 5,000 people who are there. It doesn't matter. We put as much into every show. And, there is a real exchange between the band and the crowd. And the more interactive it is, the better the show is. It's just a fact. And we like to connect with the audience a lot. We'll tell stories sometimes before a song and let them know what the song's about.
He'll tell stories.
And,
for the rest of the band, it's pretty much mutes on stage, but it's.
But they are learning to read. I'm really proud of the boys. But one way or the other, it is a great thing. When we love to connect with the audience, and it helps us too. And we still get as excited now as we did 25 years ago.
Oh yeah, we've had we finished a record last week,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like we've got this little window of time between finishing the record and when rehearsals start, and we've kind of been like, well, what do we do? Because we've got homework stuff that we have to do for the label and the booking agency and the venues and all that, but that's not super exciting. Making shout out videos for every venue that we're going to play. It's we do them and we have fun with them, but still it's like it's work. It's like it's not recording the songs or writing the songs or playing the shows. It's that's the stuff you have to do so people know about the shows to come to them. But
Right.
we'd much rather be doing fun stuff or watching sports or hanging out and with our friends and whatnot. But it's stuff that has to be done.
Right on. I got you, JD. JD, talk about the musical connection you and Billy share. I mean, the Boxmasters have been doing it for almost 20 years. So many great bands we know struggle to make it 10 years, or they force it for a long time. Why have you been able to do it and keep getting better so many years together?
Well, I think it's, first off, it starts off as, we're fans of each other. It's like, my favorite lyricist and drummer and singer is Billy, and he enjoys what I do and is always pushing me to, play more solos on the record and play, different sounding things and, really experiment. So, we've always pushed each other, to do better. And it's like we always want to make the next greatest record that we possibly can. We're not ever satisfied with just cranking out some songs and being, like, hey, these could maybe be a hit for somebody else. It's like, no, we want them to be the best songs they can be for us. It's like they're our songs. We don't really want to give them to other people to do. it'd be great if, we had the income coming in from that kind of stuff, but it's not something we strive for. It's like, these are our songs. We sing them, we play them. They're, completely who we are and what, what we do. So, I think mainly, when it boils down to it, it's like, don't tell him this, but it's like, I love what Billy does and what we do together. It's like, we can't say good things to each other, so it's like, it's like we can't, compliment each other too much or in a way that, makes us, uncomfortable. But, I think at the end of the day, we like what each other does and what we bring to the band. And, we just love to create together and really try to make something different than whatever the last song was that we did.
Right on. I appreciate that, JD. Billy, talk about JD's impact on you in terms of the way you think about making music. In terms of the way you think about making music, how has he made you better, Billy?
Well, like JD said, we push each other, and he doesn't settle for something that I do if he thinks I can do better. Like, let's say I'm doing a vocal pass, and I go, well, I think we got it, don't you? He goes, give me two more. It's like he will push me like a producer would. I mean, we produce our own record, other than one that was produced by Jeff Emmerich, but for the most part, we've always produced our records. And so we actually, we produce each other, So we actually produce, it's not just two musicians sort of flailing around trying to find what to do. We have the same vision of stuff, and so we make sure that the other person fulfills that vision, really. I mean,
it's also, like, it's funny, like, I'll be sitting here and I'll have the bass in my hands and I'll be like, I just don't know what to do on this song. I'll say, you have any ideas, and you'll be like, oh, maybe you should do a walking bass part or something that's, kind of busy. Or maybe this one should just be long notes and, it's like no changing, like a super slow thing. It's the same thing. It's like when Billy gets on the drums and I'll be like, hey, at this chorus, why don't you go to a tom fill kind of thing instead of, being on the snare drum. It's funny. It's like, we're more, we know what each other can do and can, ask them to do it when when we have doubts about ourselves, like what we're doing, we can ask each other. It's like, hey, what kind of part do you hear on this? And, we'll work on that. It's like somebody might have a specific idea about what a part should be. It's like, oh, okay. And it's like, to both of our credit, we welcome the, somebody's ideas. If somebody has an idea, it's like, let's try it. It's probably, going to be better than whatever we thought of in the first place.
And the best idea wins with us. And we listen to the other person because we've both been right. So then at a certain point, you've got to listen. You know what I mean? So there are times when, we can do stuff musically. As players, we can do stuff that we couldn't have done even 12, 14 years ago. And it happens every year. Like, we'll find ourselves, and we're both self-taught. It's not like, we went to Juilliard or something. And so we are all of a sudden, because a lot of it is we've done it so long, and it's only us here, so you don't have a room full of people to embarrass yourself in front of. So we can try stuff. It's like, you know what, I want to try this, or JD will say, I want to try this. We may screw it up 5 or 6 times, but because it's just he and I here, it doesn't really matter. It's like we can just screw it up so many times as we can, because we have it in our head. It's like, oh, okay, there it is. Now we know what it is. And usually when we push ourselves that way, we end up changing a song to even make it better than what we thought it was going to be. I mean, you know, we'll discover some counter melody or something we weren't even thinking about when we started the song, and lyrically, you know, we'll beat a song to death until the lyrics are poetic, you know. And you know, Dwight Yoakam and I used to talk about lazy songwriting all the time, you know, about how, you know, people are always, you know, rhyming, you know, foam and go and stuff like that, and it's like that's not a rhyme, you know. So maybe in Nashville it is, but not around here. But one way or the other, we have pushed each other over the years, and we also don't have we finally learned in the early days, we were probably a little more defensive when the other one would say something, you know, like in the first few years of the band, you'd do something, you thought it was cool, and the other guy would say, no, I don't know, are you sure that's, you know, what you ought to do or whatever? And okay, well, I can, you know, okay, I'll do it again. You know, you get kind of defensive or whatever. We haven't been that way in years and years and years because we started to learn that, you know what, this works. You know, it's like if JD tells me I should try something, I'll try it. And if I tell him to try something, he'll try it because probably 99.5% of the time it works. And so it's not a thing that we really have to think about anymore. And like I said, you got two musicians making the albums for the most part. I mean, we have other guys played on the records off and on, right, but it's just two of us. So you have two musicians who are also the producers and one who's the engineer. So it's like we have the whole package of stuff right here, you know, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier because there's not, I mean, producers can be, they want to put their stamp on it, but their stamp may be very different than what your vision of something is. And we're putting our own stamp on it as producers and musicians. It's like we're telling ourselves what to do, you know, so there's no asshole producer that you got to get mad at and go outside and have a smoke. You know?
Oh, that is great stuff, guys. So an efficient, self-contained machine all right there in that bubble. And obviously, as you said, no ego. Interesting what you said about early on, maybe like getting a little chapped and, well, F you, but well, yeah, no, I mean, obviously.
When we started, you know, I still had like all my hair and it was like luxuriously brown and I weighed about 60 pounds less than I do now. And it's like, you know, as a child, I mean, I was 33, I think it was when we started. So, you know, it was real easy to be a you know, know-it-all little whippersnapper, you know. It's like, they're like, no, sing this part, you know, you know. But yeah, I mean, over the years, it's like we just trust each other that we know we're going to do the best we can. We're going to try to do something different than we've ever done before, and we're going to just make the best song possible. And we're going to do it pretty quickly, you know. And we're going to have something at the end of the night that we can listen to and go, hey, you know, this sounds great, you know. Let's, you know, now we can sleep on it, and we'll come back tomorrow and tweak it and get it to exactly the place that we want it to be.
Right on. Prolific output is what I would say in terms of, you know, strong songs and a lot of strong songs and a lot of records and a lot of strong records. So it's a beautiful thing. Billy, you and your younger brother, Jimmy Don, loved playing and listening to music together as kids back in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Talk about sharing what you called your earliest musical education with Jimmy Don, which was listening to KAAY out of Little Rock late at night on a transistor radio. Talk about the magic of that, Billy. Take us back there.
Well, you know, we weren't exactly what you would call wealthy folks. And so Jimmy and I shared a bed. We, you know, until we were, well, all the way through high school, honestly. And until my father passed away. And So we're supposed to go to bed at a certain time, and my dad didn't like music, so when he was home, we didn't play much. So but we had a record player, and we were record collectors. We just couldn't wait till the next record, and we would join like the Columbia Record Club where you get 13 for a penny, but then you realize, oh, we got to buy another 13 this year, for like
right.
retail.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, but one way or the other, we did have a little transistor radio, and KAAY had all these. Back in those days, the DJs were heroes. They were like rock stars themselves.
Yes.
A guy named Doc Holliday, and there was Bob Robbins. There was like all these guys, and so at night, starting at maybe it was 11 or so, there was a show called Beaker Street, and there was a DJ named Clyde Clifford. So the daytime guy, like Doc Holliday, it would be like, "Hey, everybody, it's KAAY," that kind of thing, the peppy, too much coffee voice.
Yeah.
And Clyde Clifford was like, "Welcome to Beaker Street. This is Clyde Clifford," with like spooky noises behind and stuff. So we heard a lot of the things that they didn't play in the daytime on the radio. Like, in other words, they would play a whole side of an Allman Brothers record, that would be one song, like on Eat a Peach, one record, it's a 2-record set, and one record has Mountain Jam, part 1, 2, and Clyde Clifford would just play the whole thing. To this day, every now and then we play Sylvia's Mother by Dr. Hook, but we do more of an up-tempo rock version of it, because it was a ballad, kind of a mournful ballad that Dr. Hook did. And I first heard that song on Clyde Clifford's show,
Wow.
And I just loved that song immediately, and it led me to listen to them more. And, we would hear, all the sort of underground music, Captain Beefheart of the Mother's Invention, or people like that, And then when I moved to California, Dr. Demento taught me all about, Weird Al Yankovic, people like that.
Dr. Demento.
But yeah, it was interesting. But we were supposed to be asleep at like 9 o'clock or something, for school. So we would put the covers over our heads. We had a flashlight so we could dial stuff and everything. And so we were supposed to keep the door open, and it was right across the hall from my parents' bedroom. But we would always sneak the door closed, Of course, in the middle of the night, one or the other of them would get up to pee, and that was it. And they'd open the door.
Right.
I'd have to cut the flashlight off and turn the radio off. But we would play it low enough, but sometimes they heard it, and we'd get our asses handed to us.
JD, you grew up in the middle of Kansas, ag
Yep.
country, and your earliest musical influences were the Chipmunks and the Beach Boys. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I somehow, I just always loved. I loved surf music when the Jan and Dean and the Beach Boys songs, from the earliest age that I can remember. And I had a little Fisher Price record player, and I had one of those Beach Boys records that had all the hits on it. I think it was the live record that they had. But yeah, I loved every second, especially those early, the surfing songs and the songs about cars. It's like, as a 5-year-old, I understood those. They made sense to me. Later on, Pet Sounds, as being like a 6 or 7-year-old, I didn't quite understand Pet Sounds, for quite a while. And also the Chipmunks, I really dug. They would do covers of Beatles songs or Beach Boys songs, and I remember they did "This Diamond Ring" was one of them, and I think they did "Henry VIII I Am." It's like, so they're doing the British Invasion songs that we loved, but it was the Chipmunks version, and so somehow it's like I was really drawn to that technology of recording and manipulating sounds, kind of right away without even knowing it. But I was never one for listening to the music that was current. I was always listening to the Beach Boys and the Beatles and the oldies channel, that was on, don't look it, but I am a couple years younger than Billy is. So, anyway, yeah, I grew up on all that, and I loved it. And, especially British Invasion and Creedence and the Beach Boys. And so once I met Billy, we started talking about the stuff that we loved. We had so many common things that, our interests kind of crossed paths, whether it was sports, kind of where we're from, the music that we liked, and, food and the way people talk and everything. It's like all these things that were similar from our upbringings and, growing up in the middle of nowhere, that kind of thing. And, having to really work to find stuff that you liked, and seek it out. And so we just had so many connections. And I think that's why we've been able to keep this up so long. It's because, we basically come from the same dirt. It's just, a little bit, it's not very far away in the grand scheme of things.
Right on. Appreciate that, JD. And Billy, just to step back for a minute, you said your dad did not dig music. What do you mean? I mean, did he like Elvis or
Oh, he hated Elvis.
hated Elvis?
He hated Johnny Cash. He didn't like music. I mean, seriously, he's the only person he loved sports. He was a coach, my dad, like a high school basketball coach. He coached the boys and girls teams at small schools, So the only time he was ever interested in anything is like when the Razorbacks were on TV or something like that, and we would pray that they would win. Otherwise, we'd get a hamburger patty upside the face or something. So, but I remember when we tied Rice in Little Rock one time, 10-10. Boy, it was a bad day around the house. But because you're supposed to beat Rice,
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
one way or the other, he did not like music. He liked two songs in my memory, and my mother used to puzzle over this. He liked the song Easter Parade. Remember Don Your Easter Bonnet with all the frills upon it, that was in some musical with Judy Garland or somebody.
Okay.
He liked that. Like, what? Why? I don't understand. It's like if you don't like music, and yet you like a show tune. What is this? And then he liked Puff the Magic Dragon.
Which totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what that means, but and then my mom was lived for music. I got my early musical education from my mom playing records or the radio, and she listened to Ray Price and Jim Reeves, and then later a lot of she loved Chris Christopherson. That was one of her favorites. But yeah, I mean, she would go to sleep a lot of times at night. Like after my dad passed when I was 17, he was 44. And then my mom started leaving her door open at night, and we did too. And she would play the record player. The old record players, you could put like 5 LPs on it.
Yeah.
It had the arm. And then when one finished, the next one would drop down like that. And she would put those on to go to sleep to at night. So I would hear those records. And she gave me my first album that I got to own myself, which was the soundtrack album for King Creole, Elvis.
Ooh.
And by the way, as an aside here, today's August 16th. Today's the day Elvis died. August 16th.
Wow.
August 1977. Yeah.
Wow. Gosh, I hadn't thought about that today. Wow. The August things, I didn't know it was on this date. 77. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. And big props, we'll say, to your mom for all of that musical exposure that you got from her. As far as the Clyde Clifford and those deep cuts, we'll say, that was, obviously early version of what we know as deep cuts, right? But among those great bands you heard, and you mentioned the Allman Brothers Band, and they became your favorite. I happened to be fortunate to be there when you met the great Dickie Betts on his tour bus here in Ohio in 2002. And Billy, I can remember like it was yesterday, Dickie, with the mutual respect you guys shared instantly, Dickie asked you to give him he asked you repeatedly, do Carl for me, do Carl for me. You know, you're the iconic Sling Blade character, Carl Childers. And you said, in essence, well, I haven't done the character. And again, this is in '02. You said, in essence, I haven't done it in, I think it was 6 or 7 years. And you said, but for Dickie Betts, I'll do it. And JD, Billy turned his back to us, small group of people, 4 or 5 max, turned his back to us 10 seconds maybe, and turned around in full-on Carl mode. And I mean, Dickie fell out. He just lost his mind. He thought that was the coolest thing. Billy, talk about what that moment meant to you. A musical hero of yours showing maximum respect for your creation.
Well, he was, and I knew Dickie a little bit before that. I mean, I talked to him on the phone several times because he used to have Don Johnson call me and say, Dickie wants to talk to you, even though he had my number. Somehow they found out that we were up, this is before the Boxmasters, and I was out with the Stolo band, and we had a day off. I think they were in Columbus and we were in Cleveland. And me and a couple of the other guys drove down there. Somebody brought me down there, I don't remember. But anyway, we got down there and, came on the bus with you guys and everything. And it was just great sitting there face to face. We were sitting at the table across from each other, if you remember, on the bus.
Yes.
And both had us a Budweiser. He had it was, his old Dickie Betts band, like some of the great Southern bunch, and all that. Dan Toller was playing with him.
Right.
Yeah. And Dangerous Dan Toller. And
Dangerous Dan, rest in peace.
I know. But, what was funny about that day was he asked me to sit in, if you remember this.
I do, vividly.
He said, just sit in on a song. I go, well, let me see what you're playing. I don't know. I don't want to get up there and screw something up because this is not simple stuff.
Right.
And so he showed me the set list, or his tour manager showed me the set list. I looked at it, and about, 7 songs down was, what the hell's it called now?
Southbound.
Southbound. And Southbound was about 7 songs down. I thought, well, I've played Southbound before. I think I can do Southbound. And he goes, okay, cool. We'll have you set up there. They had 2 drum kits on stage and a sort of percussion outfit down there. Okay. And so JD's just doing something here.
Sorry, I'm not sure why why that got through.
It's Dickie sending a message or something. Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Dickie's saying, tell the story right. But anyway, so I would have been more nervous than I was, but I'd had a couple, and so they said, yeah, just stay on the bus. You don't want to go out there with all these people. Just stay on the bus till it's time. We'll come get you a song or two before. Well, we went out there, and they stood me over by the monitor guy, and he told me, he said, so we got you that Les Paul and that Marshall rig right there. That's what you're going to play on. I said, dude, I'm a drummer. I said, I'm not going to go play, I can strum, Hank Williams songs, but I'm not going to go play on Southbound next to Dickie Betts. I can't do it. I don't know how. And so, anyway,
Take the solo.
Yeah, exactly. So he goes, well, that's cool. Just get on the drum kit over there. I go, all right. And so Dickie's turned toward the audience, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, you got a friend of mine here tonight, great guy, and this guy, and, says all this stuff, and introduced me. And Dickie saw me walk up on the stage, but he never saw where I went. So I went and got back behind the drums, and he said, "Well, where the hell did he go?" And then he goes to the crowd. He goes, "Well, F him, you know. Well, maybe we'll get him up here later." Then we kicked the song off, and I'm looking at the other drummer. We kicked off Southbound. I played the whole song. And I hope they sent me a board tape of it. I think I've got it somewhere in the storage. But I played the song straight through, didn't screw anything up, and, it was great. And then Dickie, after the thing, he goes, "Well, sorry you didn't come up with us now, but we'll get him up later on tonight," all this kind of stuff. And I walked off stage. So Dickie never even knew that I was back there, I think, till later, and they told him, But it was a pretty funny.
So good. And so, Billy, obviously, growing up on the Allman Brothers Band and everything that band not only meant to you all those years, still means to you, and the influence it had on you, what was that moment like for you up there? Whether Dickie knew it or not, I mean, you had to carry your load, so to speak, and you did. But what did it mean to you?
Well, it meant everything. I mean, when you do things like that, you can't even believe it. It's like it never really sinks into you. To this day, I try to not even think about it because I'm afraid I'll get nervous in retrospect. But we've done that a few times over our lives. Been around people and played with them that you can't even believe you've done it. And when I was a kid, we used to open for Black Oak, Arkansas. We opened for Humble Pie. Asleep at the Wheel and Earl Scruggs Review. People like that back then. And
strong.
And so we back then, though, you're a teenager and you think it's like, wow, this is awesome, and you just do it. You grow up and you realize exactly what you're doing, and then we've opened for ZZ Top a lot, who are
Absolutely.
We've known those guys for years, and every time we play with them, it's like you're opening for the Flintstones. It's like I saw this when I was young, and so it's unbelievable. And then we played on records from Warren Zevon to Ian Hunter and Mott the Hoople to the Shake Shackers,
the legendary Shack Shakers,
legendary Shack Shakers, Warren Haynes, and people like that we're on records with. And it's every time you just can't believe it when you see your name in the credits on stuff of people that you grew up admiring.
That's such good stuff. I appreciate you sharing that. JD, you won a Grammy for your efforts in the studio on Kanye West's first record. I know you've said it was the certificate, not the trophy, because you worked on part of the album. But what was it like working with Kanye?
Do you want the
I
music
want
business
the unedited, get me maybe a beverage, a 7-Up, something. I don't know. Yeah.
There was almost a punch thrown on after, because I got fired after one of the days, but I still had to be in the studio with him. And, because, to dive into the weeds here, they had recorded these songs, but what I was doing was recording the separate parts out of his drum machine, or his box. And somebody had taken those songs and sped them up so nothing matched. And so it was just a nightmare of, ways to not make a record and have it sound good. So anyway, he wasn't a ton of fun to be around, and it was very condescending. And so, it's great to be able to say, yeah, I've I can put Grammy award-winning engineer on my, resume. But then when I have to tell the story about it, it's like, I would rather have not won that one. I'd rather just say, oh yeah, I was nominated for a Rolling Stones record that, didn't win. So, but it's, you know, it is what it is. You work with some people that are great and you win nothing and you get paid nothing. Others, you work with them and you get awards and you make money, and it's, you know, a horrible experience. So you have to take the good with the bad here in the good old entertainment biz.
Yeah, right on. And on the good side, and you mentioned the Stones, doesn't get any bigger than that. You've worked with so many great artists, but you were in the studio for part of their A Bigger Bang sessions, right? Describe that experience, JD. There has to be a good story in there. Did you talk much with Mick or Keith?
I spent a lot of time with Mick. Keith, I got to record some overdubs with 1 or 2 days. And, it's just like watching Daffy Duck sit there. It's like, he might as well be a cartoon. Like he's like somebody you can't believe he's actually alive. Like
right.
That is that guy that, has, written all these riffs and, co-written these songs, that, are just part of our lives.
Bigger than life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But one night, so it was pretty late, and Mick and I were sitting there comping a vocal and, making sure we had all his best performance bits. And, it was, a pretty simple, little edit session that we were doing. And, sitting with him just like I'm sitting with Billy right now. Oh, wait, he's gone. Anyway. But so anyway, somewhere around, midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, a couple of girls come by to say hello to Mick. And so he's sitting there talking to him, and I'm, with my back to him, and I'm working on the song. And it's like I'd recognized one of the girls. But anyway, they're talking to Mick, and they're saying how they'd been to the mansion and been at a party, and, the mansion, the Playboy mansion. Nobody says Playboy in it. It's just the mansion.
Right.
So anyway, so then they came over to say hi to Mick and, hang out for a little bit. And eventually one of the girls is like, hey, I know you. And I just said hi and said her name. And Mick jumped up off the couch by the girls and like basically ran across the room because he thought, maybe he was, getting too friendly with, one of my girls.
Yeah. And that was your lady, and he was respectful.
Yeah, it was but it was so funny that he was like, oh, I'm not going to mess with, this guy's girl. He's going to jump across the room and make sure. He's like, oh, no funny business. And, it had been a girl that had been in a group that I had worked with, pretty recently, right? I had to actually tell the producer of that record that, hey, I've got to leave to go work with the Stones. And he's like, yeah, you do. You got to go. Wow. And so it was, quite an experience. And, it was super fun. And it's like at the end of the record, we all went to another studio to hear the last of the mixes, and everybody had a champagne toast, and Mick made sure to step into the center to make sure to toast with me, because I was kind of outside a little bit, and he made sure to clink glasses with me, and got to hang out in a circle with Keith, and just hear stories, and it was really incredible, and they're really amazing guys. And they were getting along at that point, so that was a super great thing. And then, more recently, I got to meet Ronnie, and Ronnie wasn't at the overdub sessions, and so I got to meet Ronnie with Billy, and when we went to London, and it's like all those guys, and we've been friends with Chuck LaBelle for a bunch of years, and played with Chuck, and it's really, really amazing how small our worlds are, like with the people that we know, and how that, everybody kind of comes in and out, and how we, know each other. And, it's like, oh yeah, we were on that record, or, we were in the studio at that same time. And it's really a ton of fun, and it's also fun to be. Now it's like at the when I was working with those guys, it was like I was the studio guy, and now it's like, oh, now I'm the musician guy, and it's wild. It's like weird to combine the worlds for me sometimes, but it's a lot of it's just a dream. That's kind of is wild. It's like, how am I living this life? It's bizarre.
Right on. And I remember Billy telling me early 2000s that in all the people that he became friends with, Willie and Waylon and Christofferson, that whole group. And Billy, you said something to me way back then. It might have been like 2001-ish. And you said, what they meant to you, but you said essentially at that time, I just can't even believe I was ever in the same room with them, let alone to become friends with them. So I got you, JD. That's powerful stuff. I appreciate that.
Well,
Let's
can I continue? So to kind of turn this sports wise. I mean, me and Billy both grew up from the earliest age being baseball players and playing every sport that you can. And one year we got to play Tony LaRussa's Animal Rescue Foundation benefit, and he would do 2 of them a year. One was at Walnut Creek where he lived, and one was in St. Louis. And so we did the St. Louis one, and it was a great night. I'm trying to remember who all was there. Air Supply. It was a concert. Air Supply.
Sure. John Anderson from Yes.
That's right. Yeah. So just a bunch of people that Tony liked. A bunch of musicians and artists that Tony liked, and he had them come out to his benefit and play the show. And but afterwards, we got to go to Mike Shannon's restaurant, and Tony was there, of course, and brought us along, but he also brought his friends, Bobby Knight and Jim Leyland. Shannon. And so it's like we got to hang out and listen to these guys tell stories, and even more, than the musicians that we've met, because musicians, it's like we have a lot of common ground, or, like even if they're heroes of ours, we've lived somewhat, like in the shadows of them. With athletes and coaches and all that, it's a completely different thing. It's like we're fans of it. We played, but never, professionally, or, it's like they're in this world way above anything that we ever experienced. And so just listening to those guys tell their stories and be in the room, I wish I could remember something specific, but I just remember Leland talking about Barry Bonds as a rookie, and and about the years, how Barry, from the first year to when before he went to the Giants or wherever, just listening to the stories about that. It is like they're telling stories that are in books that so you can't really comprehend that. It's like this person was there and actually did this stuff that we've seen forever, and it's like it's still like hard to talk about. It's like, was I really there? It's like, was I really standing outside with Jim Leyland listening to the stories while he drank a Southern Comfort old fashioned?
Beautiful, and definitely had to have a smoke. He had to be smoking.
I got to smoke with Leyland. That was awesome.
Oh, tell me, Billy.
I'm not going to say that I didn't either, but it's like one of my kids is in the other room, so it's like I don't want to be a bad influence.
Oh man, I've dreamed of smoking with Jim Leyland. So you smoked with him, Billy?
For sure. like an old Buick. Well, I mean, Leyland was always one of my favorite managers anyway, even though I was a Cardinal fan. and Tony and I are really close. But my other favorite manager in baseball was Leyland. Just because he was so old school, and I mean, you could have put Leyland in a uniform for the Tigers in the 20s, and he would have looked like he belonged.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? But he was just, you know, gruff but lovable and funny, and just, he's awesome. I mean, I still text him every now and then, just to say hi. Of course, Tony and I keep in touch, but I always thought, see, any guy that smokes in a dugout, that's awesome.
Oh man, outstanding. Yeah, those guys. I mean, that's like legendary throwback, and as you just said, that's the best way to say it. You could have put Leyland in a uniform in any era, and it just would have been so right. Obviously, Billy, you're a lifelong fan of the, excuse me, of the Cardinals. You're friends with many of them, but one name I want to talk about with you, and I wonder if you not only met him, I'm guessing you did, but had conversation with the one and only Red Schoendienst, Billy.
Oh yeah, what a nice guy. Red was like just a gentleman, complete gentleman. And I think the day I took pictures with Red at Bush, I think it was the same day I got to sit and talk with Musial. And I still got pictures of Musial. It's like I mean, there was one day, honestly, where I thought it was such sensory overload that I was kind of, thinking I was going to have a panic attack because,
Sure.
the usual guys were around that I met before, Lou Brock and Ozzy and Bob Gibson, and I think of the McGuire was there. It was when McGuire was playing. This is in the, I think, 98 it would have been. And, just all these guys. And I couldn't even believe it. You're just kind of stunned that you're even there. I mean, JD and I had a time when we were at the All-Star thing. I guess it was at the All-Star game. And we were back there in one of the restaurants in the, field and everything. And we sat and had one with Goose Gossage. What a guy. I mean, you're talking about a fun guy to hang out with.
There was a rain delay, so
Man,
Billy was
the Goose.
Yeah.
Billy was playing in the celebrity softball game, and there was a rain delay. And so obviously we were all back in this room, restaurant, conference room thing. Everybody's getting rather inebriated. Everybody's feeling great. And, we got to sit there and talk to Goose. And when I was a little kid, I was a big fan of the Yankees. A lot of it was because I read a book about Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford and Billy Martin and the escapades that they got into, which I didn't understand as a 10-year-old or whenever I read the book, but I was like, these guys are the coolest. And so I kind of became a Yankee fan because of that. Plus, my best friend back then was a huge Royals fan, and the Yankees and the Royals were playing in the playoffs every year.
Yes, they
and
were.
Getting in fights, and it was real excellent rivalry baseball. And so it made sense that I picked a team that hated his team because we just could not have any like similarities in the teams that we chose. But we're sitting there, and Billy told Goose, he's like, hey, this is JD. He's a big fan of yours, and he loved those Yankees teams back in the 70s, and so he talked to Goose for a minute. He said, hey, hold on. So Goose left the room, and he came back with a bat. And so each player gets a bat that says, has their name stamped in it. And, it's kind of their memento from being at the All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
And he signed his and, Hall of Fame, '96 or whatever year that he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And and he handed me this bat, and it's just like, what is happening to me? What is going on here? Why? And it's amazing. I mean, I'm ever grateful that Billy takes me along to some of these events that he gets to go do, and it's like I get to meet these heroes of mine, and it's unreal every moment.
Oh, that's amazing stuff. I mean, just what you've said. I mean, we're just scratching the surface, but Jimmy Leyland, Bob Knight, two of my all-time favorites. I mean, you want to talk about just killers in the best way in terms of the ultimate coaches. Talk about Stan Musial. You talk about LaRussa, and you bring it in there with Goose Gossage. Can you imagine? And Billy, I know you were a pitcher, but as a ball player, guys, can you imagine standing in the box in the ninth inning when Gossage is in there with that stash and those eyes, I mean, staring you down?
No.
Big man, incredible, bringing the heat.
And speaking of closers, we also met Lee Smith on the bus.
Yeah.
Lee Smith was on because we had to ride the bus from somewhere to somewhere during that thing, and Lee Smith was in the back, just making everybody laugh every second.
Hilarious.
He was absolutely incredibly funny, and just lit up the whole place. And I was just like, it's also another guy that it's like, I don't want to see him 60 feet away from me,
No.
standing with the ball behind his back, getting ready to chuck it at my head. He's a big, intimidating dude, but he is one of the funniest people that I've ever been around in my life.
Lee Smith. Go ahead.
I hit left. I was a left-handed hitter, and I always thought I would just probably faint if I faced Randy Johnson.
Oh yeah.
I was just gonna, when you mentioned left-handed hitter, can you imagine by the time, what are we talking? Was he 6'10" or it's 6'10", 6? So by the time that guy unfolded, and that arm had to be, I mean, that ball had to be on the hitter, like not even a blink of an eye.
Oh yeah.
And you never know when he's just going to kill a bird right in front of your face.
Yeah, exactly. Was it Randy Johnson that John Kruk did the thing with?
Oh yeah.
Remember John?
Like put his hat on back.
Put his helmet backwards, and then
Yes.
just shrugged and just walked off. I think he had his eyes closed most of the time. He was just like, I can't hit this stuff. Who could?
Oh, you're such great stuff. Billy, what do you? Go ahead.
Let me. So one of the other things that we've, because we've become friends with, various people, we met a radio DJ or a talk show guy in Arizona, and Robert Marr, or what's his last name?
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, so Robert's a DJ for us, or out of Phoenix, and so we're talking on the radio with him and doing the interview, and he said, "Hey, I do some work out at the Texas Rangers spring training facilities, working with pitchers and stuff as a bullpen catcher. How about you guys come out next time you're in Phoenix and check out the facilities and just hang out?" So we go there. And, Robert comes to the hotel and picks us up, and he drives us about 45 minutes. And it's like, wow, where are we going, So we get to the place, and they kind of suit us up in some, Rangers gear and take us out to the field. Well, the main guy that we were hanging out with was the rehab pitcher, the guy that, helps pitchers rehab when they're, after they've got and gets them back in shape. I can't remember his real name, but his name is Kami.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so he was a major league pitcher with about 40 teams.
Right.
And
He's the one that got traded for a bag of balls.
Exactly. And somebody told us that, hey, Tommy's the guy. If you ever saw the Sports Illustrated, the little blurb that said, whatever his name, however you say his full name, but Tommy was traded from the A's to the Padres or whatever for a bag of balls and $50 or something like that. And I remember reading that story, and it's like when we met this guy, and he was such a character too, and had stories that would never end. And it's like, wow, you meet these people that it's like, he's not a big star, but to us, we knew who he was. And to us, it was like just meeting somebody, like meeting Abraham Lincoln, it's like, wow, you're the guy that got traded for a bag of balls. It's like, I know who you are. It's incredible. And we were just so excited. It's like,
it didn't matter how many teams he played for. We still couldn't hit his curveball.
Oh, heck no. I fell down the first time he threw me one. It's like he threw batting practice to us. And so we're hitting up there, and I'm, stroking some line drives into the outfield. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, you're looking good. You still got it. It's like, yeah, I'm feeling it. Threw me a curveball and fall down just on my ass. And it's like, goodness, and he's throwing him, 50 miles an hour. And this curveball just goes, it's unreal.
Tommy, that's amazing. Tommy and the bag of balls. Billy, I want to ask you too about, pardon?
I was just telling JD his name. I told him that I would put the Rangers suit on, and I did a whole pitching session with Tommy and everything, and with Robert, who caught me.
Robert Marr.
Nice.
Like spring training catcher, and all that stuff. And
he just volunteers to go out there and catch. It's like, I can't imagine a thing that I wouldn't want to volunteer for. Is these kids coming out there throwing 100 miles an hour right at your...
Oh, it's crazy. And then, but I told him, I said, I'll put the Rangers uniform on, but don't send any of these pictures to anybody involved with the Cardinals organization. And they said, okay, we won't. But this is
Remember the first pair of pants they gave you, and it was like clown pants?
Oh, I know.
I got a picture of Billy somewhere where he put the first pair of pants on, and it's like the thighs are made for Albert Pujols.
Yeah. I got to see that. Well, that's amazing that you just mentioned Pujols, because Billy, I want to get your take on that. For my money, what that man did, the first 10 years especially, let's just talk first 10 years at the plate, that production was just insane. Billy, what do you say about it?
Well, I got to say, I was...
Keith Comstock.
Yeah, Keith Comstock was Tommy's name. But anyways, I got to go down one day before a game with Tony and stand behind the batting cage when they roll it out, and the guys are taking a few hits. And Albert was hitting, and I'd met Albert a couple of times, and he was the nicest guy in the world. And but standing that close to this guy, and my God, he was, when he hit the ball, the sound was like crushingly loud. And Tony said to me, he said, do you know what the number one quality of a great major league hitter is? So I started thinking of the usual stuff, it's like great hand-eye coordination, the ability to, outguess pitchers, just like seeing the ball, just making contact. I said all the usual stuff. He goes, no, number one quality is courage. And I go, wow. I remember feeling like, what a great thing to say, because he said the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter who they are, how good they are or not. Even, a guy like Pujols, they have to stand in that batter's box and face guys who are throwing scary stuff at them. And you got to stand in there and guess what you're swinging at, and still not, get hit in the neck. It's like, he said, they have to have that, this sort of defiance. And it's like, standing in there and not worrying about it. But yeah,
Courage.
Albert was.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say Albert was awesome. All those guys back in those days, I got to meet and know a lot of those guys, and they were those Cardinal teams back then were just. I knew McGuire pretty well, and Chris Carpenter and Wainwright, and Yachty, and Yachty gave me his cell phone number. I was always kind of afraid to call him, but I finally did. And he was in Puerto Rico, but one way or the other, JD and I would hang out with Scott Spezio and John Jay and Dirty Dan.
Yeah, it was funny because our event, there was a lot of players that came to it, and I remember talking to John Jay and Dan Descalso, and they weren't even rookies yet. It was still spring training time, and so they hadn't even made the team. And I asked Tony about it, and I said, "Hey, those are really nice guys," and he was basically like, "Yeah, we'll see." Yeah, exactly. It was like, I don't know if they're going to make the team, and that was the year. Then they made the team. I met David Freese too. He was, David Freese, a big old tall guy, and John Jay and Dan Descalso are both
really small,
not very tall guys. It's amazing how you can be 6'5" or 5'6" and still be an amazing baseball player.
That's one of the great things about baseball is your size doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Obviously these guys work out in a different way than they did in the old days. They don't smoke in a dugout and eat a hot dog and drink a beer what they used to during the game. But still, you can be David Eckstein, who I knew was, and then Jimmy Edmonds was a regular sized guy, probably 6 footer, 6'1" maybe, but then Eckstein was like 5'6" or 7, and so you can be a great ball player in baseball and not have to rely on being a giant like you do in a lot of other sports. Of course, sometimes in football, you can be
some of these guys are so huge. I mean, we were in Kansas City one time, and Joe Mauer and
Joe Mauer and the first baseman.
The catcher. He was a catcher.
I'm sorry, catcher. No, Joe Mauer was the catcher.
Yeah, sorry, Joe Mauer and.
What was the first baseman that was so good on the Twins?
Are you talking for the Royals, first baseman?
For the Twins, the M&M boys of.
Justin Morneau.
Justin Morneau.
Morneau, yeah, wow.
Those two guys came on our bus, and a bus, it's not like a full high ceiling, but it's still, way taller than we are. And these guys come on the bus and they're like hunched over. They're just so big that, it's like they can't live in kind of our little, rock and roll world because, everybody's, not that big in there.
No, but, that's amazing. And when you.
And Carpenter and Wainwright, both just so tall. It's unreal. And, Albert too. It's like I found a picture of us with Albert. And it's like, golly, he's just head and shoulders so much bigger than the rest of us. Unreal.
Billy, on the Albert thing, he left, and that was a lot of heartache. There were also, as we know, whether it's you, movies, you guys, albums, anybody that's doing things at a strong level and creating, or a high-profile athlete, the media, and I don't want to lump it in and just blanket statement the media, but we know there are many who like to take the shots, and especially when it comes to the money. But do you look at Albert's situation and him leaving, and do you say, you know what, he got it done times 10 for the Cardinals. He brought the biggest hardware home. He delivered on all fronts for many years for St. Louis. He loves St. Louis. Could you can understand how the guy went, and you don't want to say just to get paid. Obviously, it was insane money. He's an ultimate competitor. He still went with the intention to win. What do you say about his move out of St. Louis to take that Angels deal then?
Well, obviously I was heartbroken like everybody else, but I try to not judge anybody who does stuff like that because they're going to make personal decisions for themselves and their family, and sometimes you just feel like it's the right decision, and maybe Albert at that time thought I need, not only is this a good money deal for my family and I, and also he gave so much to charity, and did so many things for people, and uh, but also maybe he started feeling stale. He needed something fresh. Felt like he, a place to start again. Who knows what's in his head? But I respect a decision of a guy like that because he's not just a. He was not a shallow guy who, and so uh, I've always respected him and always loved him. I mean, he's just a great human and a great ball player. And I mean, it's like we watched this guy, a guy like Albert Pujols, in his time and know him, and 50 years from now, that's like we knew Babe Ruth,
Amen.
or whoever, it's like Dizzy Dean, it's like, I mean, I know knew Bob Gibson, and that is like to me, it's like just hanging out with Dizzy Dean or, Christy Mathewson or somebody, I mean, because that's what they're going to be in history, and we knew those guys. It's nothing to sneeze at.
That's a great way to put it. Last, on the baseball note, you guys, start with you, Billy. You have one game to win it all. And we'll talk, let's just say it's modern era. Who you taking as your starting pitcher between these guys? The Rocket or Greg Maddux?
Wow, boy, you talk about a tough one. Because Maddux could throw the ball exactly where he wanted to throw it every time he threw it.
Pinpoint, yes.
He was a scientist.
He was. I've never seen anything like it. What I loved about Maddux is he looked like an eighth grade science teacher, and yet he was a baseball pitcher, but
dominant, major league
dominant, yeah.
So dominant.
In one game, I'm going to say this. I know Roger Clemens a little bit. I got to run into him in Texas this year, and I'd never met him. He and I have the same birthday, August 4th.
Oh, wow.
I have a picture of me standing next to him where it looks like a potato standing next to a toothpick. I look like Billy Bob. I mean, it's ridiculous. You talk about feeling small. But anyway, so, and once again on TV, you don't know. I didn't know that guy was a giant. I knew he was a big guy, but good grief. Anyway, because of our birthday connection, and because he was also just dominant, and I think I would go with Roger on that.
That makes a lot of sense.
I don't know Greg Maddux, and he's probably not going to be able to be in a room where he can beat me up. Roger, I may see again.
No,
So,
I
both amazing pitchers. Incredible
Amen.
pitchers.
Amen. JD?
I'm picking Maddux. I know that
get killed.
Well, yeah, exactly. But also, it's like that it doesn't matter if it's the first game of the season or the last game of the World Series. Maddux is just going to go out there and do his job. He was just going to go out there, pitch to his spots, and make people look dumb.
Yeah.
Those guys. I mean, each in their.
I would much rather watch Roger pitch, just for fun, just because it's terrifying. But to see somebody just throw darts the way that Maddux did is just a work of art.
Absolutely. Maddux could just carve you up. Rocket too, with the power, but bring that power. But Maddux, geez, just make you look silly. It's football time.
Can I
Sorry,
ask
go
you
ahead,
one?
Billy.
I ask you one trivia baseball question that is one of Tony LaRussa's favorites.
Oh, please do.
Uh, I actually, no, actually, it's the other way around. Tony LaRussa got this instantly. It was a guy named Jeffrey Lyons, who's a critic, a writer. He wrote a
Right.
couple of baseball books, and he knows all the trivia forever. And he asked me one time because he knew that my American League team was the Baltimore Orioles because of Brooks Robinson, and my prized possession, I have a signed glove from Brooks Robinson,
Oh,
and
Billy, wow.
which is literally my favorite thing I have out of baseball. And but so he knew that when I was a kid, all the kids around, we all had a National League team and an American League team because in Arkansas we didn't have a team, so everybody followed the Cardinals. And so we all loved the Orioles because of Brooks, because he was from Little Rock. And so anyway, Jeffrey Lyons asked me, and then I asked Tony the same question. And of course, Tony knows everything. I can mention anybody. He goes, "Oh yeah, I got my first hit off of that guy." I'm like, "Hey, you know Don Mossy." Anyway, so but one way or the other, Jeffrey Lyons said in '70 the Orioles had 4 20-game winners. Who were they? And I wanted to see if you can tell me who they were.
Well, there'd be
Everybody won.
McNally,
Mhm.
Palmer.
Mhm.
That's escaping me. McNally, Palmer. I'm blanking. Who were the others?
Mike Cuellar
Quay, I almost said it, I swear.
and Pat Dobson.
Dobson,
And
yes. Wow.
always misses, so and
Except for Tony. Tony just went boom,
yeah,
boom, boom, boom.
Tony said it instantly. But yeah, anyway, so
And had a story about hitting off of each one or something.
Oh,
where it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I got my first hit off of,
yeah.
George Cuellar.
Amazing. What a great question, and what a gem of a staff. Is that the only guys? I don't recall. Is that the only? We're talking 4 20-game winners. There hasn't been that
Didn't
since for sure.
when Maddux and
Smoltz and Glavin and
Schultz and Kevin something Wood Kevin
I know who you're talking about. Maddux.
Kevin Millwood, wasn't he the 4th guy in that? I don't know if they were 20-game winners.
No,
or maybe
I thought he was after those guys. I remember those Braves as kind of like that starting 5, certainly the 4, Glavin, Smoltz, Steve Avery, the lefty,
right.
and Kemp Merker, if you remember Merker,
Yeah.
a phenom, maybe the first pick in the draft. He was certainly in the top few picks in that draft. But yeah, good question. I'm trying to remember who Smoltz, Glavin, Maddux, Avery, but that's a great now.
Wasn't Kevin Millwood one of those guys?
Billy, that's a great question. For some reason, I'm thinking he was after them, but I may be wrong. Yeah.
There's a good question for some of your listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. What a great question. It's stepping aside from the baseball, it is football time as well. Football season is here. Friday Night Lights, Billy, always a fan favorite movie. You grew up in Arkansas, so obviously it was not a stretch for you to play a high school football coach from Texas. But talk about the intensity of what high school football means there, Billy, and what it was like for you to immerse yourself in that drama and intensity to play Coach Gary Gaines.
Well, first of all, there was a lot of pressure playing him because he's a real guy and he was around. And I think he went to coach at Abilene Christian after Odessa and Permian. And I got to talk to him on the phone before we did it. And I said, sir, is there anything that you would like me to not do? Or anything that's important to you about me playing this because I want to respect you. And he said, well, I really don't curse. So I would just ask you. And I didn't in the movie. I might have said a damn once. He goes, that's fine. But, real cursing. And for me, you've seen some of the things I've done. That's usually a through line. And so that was tough. But, it was a great experience. And that field, that Permian field, it's like a college stadium. And the college I went to in Arkansas, Henderson State University, this stadium was at least that big. I think probably way bigger. And but it's a high school stadium. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go back there again recently and see it, and it hasn't changed. It's still, I got chills when I went back. But I did a lot of work there, and those players worked really hard. And the guys in the movie, we had a lot of people who, were ex-college or current college players that when they had to do the wide shots, you had to see them doing their thing. We had good ball players who were the actors, Lucas Black and Jared Hedlund and those guys, but, they could do it, but there are things that they just had to use, some players that had played. And I remember one of them had been a wide receiver for the Colts. And I got to talk to him for a little while. And wasn't a big guy, but watching those guys run, it was intense. The high school, the halftime speech in that movie has become iconic, and they still play it at games. They played it at St. John Bosco here. It's a school in Bellflower, California, home of the Boxmasters. And they play that, and still I feel honored that that's become an inspiration to teams, and they still play it for high schools, colleges, and in the pros. I mean, Jerry even played it for the before the Cowboy games or at halftime a couple times. So it's been it was a great thing to be in, and a thing that became iconic, and I'm honored to have been a part of it. And it wasn't hard for me to get into because, like I said, I grew up with a dad who was a coach, and I played ball myself. So it was a familiar territory. I'll tell you one funny thing about it, though. People always put kickers down. Oh, they're not football players and all that kind of stuff. You ever tried to kick an extra point? It ain't easy. And we were in the Astrodome doing the final game, the championship game. We shot it in the Astrodome. And I remember between takes one time, me and a couple of the guys were out there, and I wanted to kick an extra point. So I put it where an extra point would be. Obviously they're snapping the ball from, 3, right? 2 or 3. 3, yeah. And so we put it about
13-yarder, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the 10-yard from the goal line to the goalpost, So, anyways, I didn't do it soccer style because I don't know how to do that. And when I was a kid, we used to kick straight ahead, Lou Groza, Tom Dempsey,
Tom Dempsey.
And I kicked it. I almost threw my hip out of place. I was sore for like 3 days. I kicked 3 or 4. I made one of them.
Wow.
And I had to put everything I had into it. So when you see these guys, I don't think they should miss extra points, frankly, because they're being paid a lot of money just to do that. But field goals, put the ball out there at the 40, or the 43 or something like that. And then look down there and go, not only do I have to have enough leg in this with giant people coming at me, kick it over their heads and get it in between something that from back there looks like it's that wide. It's like, that's a skill right there.
So, amen. That's great stuff, man. Yeah, what they do, especially in crunch time, if you take like Adam Vinatieri, you know what I mean? Those guys coming through when they had to have it. Or the flip side, unfortunately, Scott Norwood comes to mind, gave Bill Parcells a second Super Bowl, to become a legend, but, that much. Crunch time, and Norwood was It's an amazing skill, like you say. On the football thing, Billy, and in a whole different way, such a great scene, football wise, in Sling Blade, and you and Lucas Black and the others, that special connection, the scene on a football field, great stuff. That movie obviously changed your life. Wasn't easy for you to get it made. Please share what Sling Blade means to you, Billy, almost 30 years later.
Hmm. Well, obviously, it's always going to have a special place in my heart because it's, overnight I started being able to do some of the things I wanted to do in the movies, and it became an iconic movie, and people to this day come up to me about it, and do the voice for me or whatever. But it meant a lot. We made it for nothing, and we had no idea it was going to become what it did. And it was. I guess the main thing I remember was how I just thought maybe my family and some of my friends would see it. I had never dreamed it would become what it did, and the people in it. Of course, Dwight and I to this day, he's one of my best pals in the world. We talk all the time, and he's been a friend over the years. We met before the movie, but he did an amazing job in it. John Ritter's no longer with us, neither is Rick Dial, but Brent Briscoe, all old friends, and
Colonel Bruce.
Colonel Bruce, of course,
Bruce,
yeah, Big Chestnut, Mickey Jones, all those guys are, most of Dwight's band in that thing, except for Ian Moore, they're all gone, and Natalie Kennedy I still hear from occasionally, Lucas Black, and it was just J.T. Walsh, of course, also gone, the great J.T. Walsh. Yeah, he was amazing. And so to have those people in that movie at that time and to be able to make it for that kind of money, which was under $1 million, which, I think it was $980,000 we made that movie for. We had no transportation department. I remember Robert Duvall changing his clothes to do his scene as my father there just on the set by the chair we did the scene in. Changed into his union suit right there because we couldn't afford trailers. Nobody had a trailer. There was, like I said, no transportation department at all. We would walk to locations sometimes, the whole crew.
Wow.
And so it was real special and always will be. Yeah, it's always meant a lot to me.
Could it, the way studios are today, and certainly the independent thing, I don't want to say gone, but with streaming and everything moving front and center, could Sling Blade with the studio, kind of like Billy, the character checklists or whatever, could it be made today for those reasons? Forget the price point of it.
I don't think it would get made today, and if it did get made, I think it would be ignored. I don't think it would be a success today, and probably not even get made unless I found somebody that, because $980,000 in 1995, 94, 95 is a lot different than what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I doubt I could ever get the money to get it made, and I remember showing it. I didn't show it, but the agent showed it to a woman who ran a big studio, and she said, read it, and the reply back was just, "I don't get it," and so, and a lot of people didn't then, but once it came out, all of a sudden everybody got it, and it was a life-changing experience. So yeah, I'll never forget that. I mean, I've been working for years before that, but kind of under the radar, and that was an amazing thing that happened.
What do your kids say about it, Billy? Did they see it? And obviously your kids are grown, but did they see it when they were younger? Did you watch it together? How'd that work with Sling Blade?
I know. My kids, when it was made, my kids were 1 and 2.
But later.
So my sons, and later on, I don't think they watched it until they were probably in their late teens. And my daughter wasn't born yet. I mean, she's only 19 now. She's seen one movie, I think, that I've done. She saw a few minutes, excuse me, saw a few minutes of Armageddon, and she saw the movie Puss in Boots, the cartoon, where I played Jack, the bad guy, and or the goofy bad guy. And other than that, she's never seen anything I've done because she doesn't like to think of me that way. She said even when she was a little kid and there would be a poster of me on Sunset Boulevard, she would go, "I don't like to see you on those things." She goes, "I like real daddy." So she's still that way today. She's kind of like doesn't want to see me that way. And my sons will watch my stuff, and but they both work. Well, my sons are now 30 and 31, so they've seen a lot of things like that. I think Bad Santa's probably their favorite.
Oh yeah. JD, do you recall seeing Sling Blade when it came out, or within that first few years? Did you hear about it and check it out, or was it much later?
I honestly can't remember, but so we're getting ready for this tour, and we're making a kind of a pre-show video that plays before we go on stage. And I distinctly remember my friend Jared, who's helping us edit that, when he said, "Hey, there's this movie the Coen brothers did with Billy Bob Thornton called The Man Who Wasn't There. Let's go see it." And I think we went to the New Art, or one of the art house movie theaters here, or in what year was that?
2000.
Okay, so it was probably here. Anyway, so Jared and I went and saw that movie, which I was, a big fan of instantly. So I remember that vividly. Where and when I saw Sling Blade the first time, I honestly can't remember. It's just, I know I saw it.
Yeah,
I just
right on.
It's hard to, it's just, I can't remember if it was in the theater or on a tape or where. I remember it better than I remember The Man Who Wasn't There,
but unlike the studio lady that Billy described, I'm sure, like so many of us, you got it when you saw it.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's I know so much more about it now, but still, there's so many layers of it that that most people don't get. It's like I know some of it went over my head. The first 6 or 8 times I watched it. I know Billy as a writer, also, movies and the songs, a lot of the times, there's kind of, what you get off of the surface of it is a lot different than actually what is the meaning of what words are. And, sometimes, there's songs that we've written together, that I don't know what the songs mean exactly. It's like I have my own kind of interpretation of what they mean, but whether or not that's actually what his intention was, it's like sometimes you just don't want to know.
No.
It's like I have my feeling about when I hear the song and when I, sing along and sing the words and what those words mean to me, and whether or not they're the same thing or not, it's not that important to me.
No, those
there's just different meanings for from what he intended and what I received from it. And you know, there's so much of this that, you know, so much. There's so many layers to these songs and the movies and everything else that, you know, it's just, you know,
Yeah,
you want to keep
that's
some of that magic. You know, if you know, it's like, oh, I know exactly. He's talking about the, you know, the time that he took his daughter to the merry-go-round and they, you know, then they had ice cream, and it's like, yeah, no, I want to
discover the secret to the universe.
exactly. It's, you know,
exactly.
you know, I don't. I want to have my own interpretation. You know, that's the magic to me. That's my magic. You know.
No, that's it for any of us. That's the magic of it, and certainly the magic of music. And random thoughts, guys. But one name popped into my mind when we were talking about size of baseball players earlier. Essence of that was a guy named Freddie Patek.
Oh yeah,
Freddie Patek. He might have been 5'8", 5'9", maybe, but strong career. But we've covered a lot of ground, and I really appreciate great stuff you guys have given on all fronts, and I really appreciate you taking the time as you're gearing up for the tour, the album. I was going to say, is that out next week?
August 30th, Love and Hate in Desperate
Yes.
Places. Come get it on our website, and we'll sign it and send it to you. And,
Yeah.
or you can send it us at one of the shows, and they'll all be signed too. And,
yeah, we're playing in Ohio. Yeah,
Bellefontaine, Ohio, Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm thinking of somewhere in Michigan, Rochester, Michigan, wherever that's at.
Yeah, and I think you're back up at the Kent stage again.
Kent
Yeah.
State, yeah. We're definitely
yeah,
at the Kent stage. You know, we're playing outside Pittsburgh, Warrendale, Pennsylvania. Those are, you know, spots that are all around. We've got a couple of spots in Kentucky. So
we're in your hood.
yeah, exactly. If you can't, we're on the other side of the state from you guys, but we're, you know, not too far across the borders. So go to www.theboxmasters.com/shows and you can get the whole tour schedule. And music is available on the website. T-shirts aren't yet, but we've got a whole new lineup of merch, new hats, new T-shirt designs, new stickers, all sorts of new fun stuff.
And the fan base keeps growing, right? I mean, I've as you know, I've seen several of your shows, and it just the energy has always been strong right out of the gate, but it just seems to keep growing, right?
The band's gotten more and more popular every year in terms of record sales, concert attendance, all of it. So we've actually developed quite a following, and you know, we sell out places now that we wouldn't have 10 years ago. You know, so
it's wild to feel the momentum. You know, feel the wind at your back as you're going when you're on your 18th year. You know, it's like, you know, it's that's one of the other reasons why, you know, we're so excited to get out there and keep doing this and keep making records, is because, you know, like people are just now catching on. You know, it's like, so we have new folks coming up. It's like, oh wow, I just, you know, heard your song on something, and you know, it's like, so then I started checking it out, and man, you guys, you know, have a lot of great stuff, and it's, you know, we just feel that, you know, push behind us. You know, it just gives us more motivation to keep going and keep working. You know, it's like we're not youngsters. It's like it's you know, it's wild to think that, you know, on your 17th release, you know, people are starting to finally catch on, and it's, you know, pretty inspiring.
Yeah, your I don't want to call it work because you guys love it, but it's effort and it's energy, and your work ethic, the Boxmasters work ethic, second to none, and the output has been strong, and awesome to see you guys continue to just take that thing up. I love what you're doing. Well, again, thanks so much, Billy Bob Thornton and J.D. Andrew, Musical Brothers. 17 years strong, Boxmasters. Keep it up and stay well, guys, and we'll see you on the road.
Excellent.
All right, bud. Good to see you, John.
Yeah, thank you, John. We appreciate it.
Likewise, guys.